now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Rev Nathaniel W Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Brother Blackwell. Let me say good morning or good afternoon or good evening, but never good night, and certainly never ever goodbye, because I hate to say goodbye. Something left over from childhood, no doubt. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel W Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church right here in the city of Los Angeles. We are located at 8916 South Main Street, zip code LA 9003. And we're worshiping with the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church. The Reverend Della F. Holiness, Dr. Della F. Holiness, is the pastor there. And we would like to invite you to come and worship with us in any and all of our services. It'd be good to see you. Glad to shake your hand and pray with you, pray for you as you go on life's journey. We are all helpers of one another. Services are on Sundays, beginning at 10 a.m., and then again we're there on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. And tonight on Friday nights at 7 p.m. So you're welcome to come and worship with us. We have a Holy Ghost outpouring in the camp, and we know that you will be blessed, and you will be a blessing to us as well. However, this offering is entitled It's Time. And what is it time for? I'm glad you thought of that question. It's time for justice. And though we know that there are various so-called definitions of justice, we know in our case that justice represents at least fairness and equality. And in the case of our nation, we need environmental justice, for we have polluted the water, polluted the air, and many times, yes, we've even polluted the ground. Are they talking about the air in LA has improved from what it was back in 1968. It's still not as good as it should be as far as your respiratory problems are concerned. Yes, we need justice in that regard. And we need justice in the area of health care, the health outcomes health outcome disparities, let me put it that way, between our so-called white brothers and sisters and our so-called black brothers and sisters, although they both may have the same amount of insurance, Blue Cross, Anthem, Medicare, and the like, but yet their health outcomes for pregnancy, carrying pregnancies to term and having a healthy pregnancy are different, vastly different, even though they can have the same doctors. So we need to eradicate those vestiges, those institutionalized tenets of racism. When racism is institutionalized, you can be looking at the monitor and be practicing racism and not know it. And so those type of things, those type of issues claim our attention in the now, not in the yesterday, in the now. And we must also always talk about economic justice, because that's how this all began. Somebody wanted to make some money, and so they made money off of somebody else at somebody else's expense. That's all slavery was. It was a labor problem. It was an economic problem. As Abe Lincoln said in his in one of his inaugural addresses, you work, you sweat, and I'll eat the fruit of your labor. Where it was really supposed to be, in the sweat of thy brow shalt thou eat bread. But in slavery, they said, you sweat, and I'll eat the bread. And I'll give you some crumbs if I feel like it. And so we have a great economic disparity between those who benefited from slavery, and we say North and South, but no, it was actually, as Abraham Lincoln said, both North and South benefited from slavery. Actually, the North was more devious and deceitful in their attitude or in their practice of slavery, because they were able to shift, so to speak, the dirty work down south. And after a certain time, although when the original 13 colonies came into existence, all of them were slave colonies. They just were not all slave economies, as it became more apparent as the decades began to roll on. Remember, slavery from 1492, well, we say from 1539, actually, when the enslavers began to sail their ships as far as Hispaniola and the Caribbean islands and Jamaica and all of that, and coming into the confines of what we call the Americas proper, Jamestown and the like, that actually from 1539 onward, and then in 1619, you can say the first formal shipment of 20 slaves was unloaded at the wharf there in Jamestown. Remember, we're talking about 1539. 1619. If you're calculating for 1619, this is the 400th year of the introduction of slavery formally into what came to be the 13 colonies and the United States of America. And so that's a long time, and a lot of time to profit, a lot of time to economically benefit off of the labor, off of the toil, off of the work, off of the slavery of other men's backs and other women's backs. And yes, child labor, even child labor, all through the Holocaust of slavery. And so that was a great economic advantage to those who were the enslavers, but it was a great economic disadvantage to those who were the enslaved. And so the disparities that we are talking about in 2019 America economically have their roots in the slave trade that flourished in this nation until it was finally ended in the last shots of the Civil War. And still in all, you had an end of slavery, but you had the continuation of racism. And racism says that there is a superior race and there is an inferior race. And all of this false science that was practiced not only in this country but around the world, but especially here. Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about Dr. Linnaeus and some of the other pseudo-scientists, what they call them race scientists, who set about to prove the inferiority of the other races and the so-called superiority of the so-called white or Caucasian race. And those errors are still with us to this very hour. Let me return to a solid ground with you for a moment and talk about what we are about, which is about reparations. And the purpose of reparations means just that, to make repair, to make whole, to make amends, to make redress for acknowledged wrongs that were in the apology that George Bush gave for slavery in 2008, and then the apology for slavery that he again repeated in 2009. Go to the Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 12. And if thy brother, an Hebrew man, or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty. Thou shalt furnish them liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them. And the only additional comment I make is in the matter of the gender, because it says, if thy brother, an Hebrew man, but then it says further, in talking, or a Hebrew woman, which is not saying that a Hebrew man is a Hebrew woman. Let's not get it twisted. Women were sold into slavery, or sold themselves into slavery, as well as the men did. And but the same principle applied to both. They were both to be treated equitably and fairly at the end of the time of their subjugation, or end of their time in which they had served. The Bible only recognized 6 years for slavery, and the 7th year was to be the year of Jubilee, this business of perpetual, eternal slavery that was practiced in the United States of America all across the so-called, now what is called the Bible Belt, and was practiced across the northern territories as well, was unheard of in Scripture. And so we automatically have a lot of contradictions and a lot of violations of the biblical concept of slavery as applied, as compared to the chattel slavery that was practiced here in these here United States of America. Although they were Episcopalians and Presbyterians, Catholics and Baptists and the like, yet they practiced and preached the dogma of slavery. And in this country, they preached the dogma and the dictum that the African was inferior to the white man, and that his natural, normal condition was one of subjection, slavery, to the dominant race or culture, which was the so-called white race. I use the modifier so-called because nature recognizes no such thing as a race, no white race and no black race, literally. As the Bible said in the book of Acts, out of one blood God made all men for to dwell upon the face of the earth. And so when you start with a fallacy, as slavery was, and you enhance it with a lie, as racism is, then if you start with a faulty premise, then you must reach a faulty conclusion. So if you start out lying, in other words, then you must end up likewise with a false narrative. Notice how kindly I have stated that obvious fact. And so we're dealing with a great deal of mythologies that have held over for generations, and we are now laboring to let the light of truth crack the darkness of ignorance that we as a nation, and indeed many in the world, have labored under for many centuries, going on 600 years since Columbus discovered America, although he never made it to this part of America. He stopped over in Haiti, as they call it, Hispaniola. And according to Bartolome Las Casas, they devastated the inhabitants and the residents that they discovered there. Although the residents were amiable, hospitable, kind, courteous, extending to any travelers on the sea, the courtesy. But the soldiers of Spain, soldiers of Columbus, committed outrages, inhumanity, to the point of cannibalism upon the native people that they found here. And because of the fact that the victor writes the report, then of course the people were always characterized as savages, as cannibals. But when in reality it was the despotic activities of the soldiers of Spain that should have been brought before the war crimes tribunal. Again, such is life, and from such brutal beginnings, one cannot expect a peaceful conclusion, although one would like to put off that reckoning as far as possible. Even Thomas Jefferson said in one of his communications to the sponsors of the Kansas-Nebraska compromise, especially to those that were crafting that compromise, that like a fire bell in the night. He says, I tremble when I remember that God is a God of justice and that his justice will not always sleep. Of course, he was referring to the institution, the domestic institution of slavery as had been practiced. He knew it was wrong, although Alexander Stephens and Jefferson Davis and John C. Calhoun, whose name I did not remember the last time I was here, all talked about the positive good of slavery and the blessings of slavery. But Thomas Jefferson said, no, I know that slavery is wrong as we have practiced it. I know it is ungodly. I know it is against humanity, and God must judge us for that. I tremble. But of course, as Abraham Lincoln was wont to say, they both read the same Bible. They both prayed to the same God. They both invoked the aid of that God against their counterpart, but they could not both be right. And that, my friends, is the rub. I wanted to talk in our little discussion offering here today. I looked up, I saw where Wayne LaPierre, you know Wayne LaPierre, he's the CEO of the National Rifle Association. Let's talk about salaries and jobs, although the slaves work for free. But Wayne LaPierre doesn't work for free. Says that his compensation for Wayne LaPierre, his base salary is $1.3 million. And that 0.3 means 300,000. His base salary is $1,300,000 annually. On top of that, he gets $455,000 bonus. This is from 2018 figures. And he received another $427,000, again 2018 figures, for other reportable compensation. Can you imagine? And plus, it doesn't end there. He gets another $73,793 in retirement and deferred compensation. That brings his salary and compensation package for the year of 2018, which is the latest year on file for him, to $2.15 million, or translated in layman's terms, $2,150,000 annual salary and compensation. You see, and but yet they want people like myself and you and nurses and LVNs and CNN nurses assistants to be satisfied with what? kibbles and no bits, or bits with no kibbles. And you have to wait on it. This guy got a 57% increase in his salary in one year. 57%. And they want us to what? Be satisfied with 3 to 5%. 3 to 5% spread out over a number of years. This guy gets 57% increase in 1 year. My. How equal is that? What justice there is. And let's see, licensed vocational nurse, according to the figures stated in the LA County, can earn about $44,000 per year. A registered nurse can earn about $88,000 per year, which sounds like a lot of money, but remember, poverty level in California is $40,000. I mean, you could be making $40,000 and still be poor as Job Turkey. And there are plenty of people out there who can testify to that because they are what you call the working poor. Some of them, most of them, if they don't already have a place, they can't afford a place now. They're working every day, but they just don't have money to put together that first and last. And in LA County, they don't have the money to pay that high rent that is being charged. Let's see, the hourly wages for a nurse, a licensed vocational nurse in Los Angeles start at $26.83 an hour, and that gives you a weekly salary of $1,073, and that's before taxes. Don't get excited. And it gives you a monthly salary of under $5,000 a month. And it takes about $5,000 a week, my brothers and sisters, to live comfortably. And therefore, if you're an LVN in LA, you can look forward to making an annual salary before taxes and before other deductions of $55,810 annually. And if you're in the state of Texas, that annual salary is reduced to $48,620. Like I said, they pay you kibbles and bits, but they get 57% increase in their salary in 1 year. My. And we are left to pay all of our bills out of our meager fare that we receive from these despots who are raking in dough hand over fist, and argue with you about getting a $1 increase in your salary. That's why I always tell you, if they don't want to pay you, you ain't got no business working for them. You got to start your business, start you something on the side, and start moving toward that dough before they put you out. Another thing that is a big problem in LA County is what? Housing. You got to have somewhere to stay. It says here, do you want to buy a house in Los Angeles? It's going to cost you need a salary. Your salary has to be $127,000 annually in order for you to qualify to buy a house in Los Angeles County. Now, there's an old song that says, how much Christmas can a broke man buy? And if you got to have that kind of salary just to buy a house, how many people you know are making that kind of salary that run in your circle with you? And that means that the interest rate on that house, that's if the interest rate is low, which is 3.85%. The house that costs you, house you could afford would be a little over almost $700,000. The monthly payment, if you make it 20% down, and the interest rate is 3.85%, Your monthly payment, can you imagine? $3,180 a month. And that's before property taxes, and that is before property housing insurance. You got to have house insurance or you can't have the house. So that just shows you how things have conspired against the middle class and the poor. My wife and I bought our house here in Los Angeles, but over in Inglewood right here now. The house went for $32,000. $32,000. And now I laugh when we and the wife, we were worried, could we afford to pay $180 or $214 a month. That's all we had to pay for that house, a month, $214, $218 at the most. Well, it went up in the last 5 years to $232 a month. But look at how the housing now, it would cost you $3,180 a month, and that's before property taxes and house insurance is included. In our house, property tax and insurance was all included. If you needed to put some extra money in the impound, they went up just a little taste, put that impound money in there to pay the annual property taxes. My sakes, how can people afford? And then rent is so important. It's so high here. Average rent in LA County, according to this report, is over $1,400 a month. And that's a one-bedroom place. And so we're still confronted with the inequities that started from slavery and have continued through 100 years of Jim Crow, and includes all the redlining and the marginalization and the pushing of the blacks into the projects like Jordan Downs, Nickerson, Garden, Pueblo, Del Rio here in LA County. And now they're tearing down Jordan Downs, and they claim they're going to give the people who are displaced the first chance to get back in those places. But you know that's not going to work. If you are on Section 8 in the first place, you still going to be on Section 8 in the second place. And if Section 8 don't step in to pay that increase for those houses, where are you going to be? Under a Trump administration with Ben Carson over HUD, you're going to be up the creek without the paddle. I'm trying to be nice. So my brothers and sisters, I tell you, as I've always told you, you're going to have to start your own business. You're going to have to become that French word, an entrepreneur. You're going to have to start you something that will make you some income, a suitable, supportable income, so you can keep going in the years to come. Because this economy, the rich are only going to get richer, and this capitalistic system, they're not going to slow down the bus and let the homeless back on and all of that. They give lip service. Oh, we're so concerned about the homeless. The guy that's over the homeless here in LA County had to step down. Why? Because the problem got worse under his tenure. Misappropriation of funds and the like is a hard problem to get a handle on. And the real estate brokers and the real estate agents and the real estate speculators are not interested in setting aside any property or land to help the less fortunate, especially the poor, and of that poor, especially the poor black people. And so as I wrap up, I hear the music playing, do you? I trust that God will continue to bless and uplift and make a way out of no way. And as I say it all the time, if Lafayette can get 57% increase, and here you are, they want to give you kibbles with no bits and want you to wait over 5 years before you get a 1%, $2 increase in your salary. They don't want you to work. My brothers and my sisters, don't work for them. All right, Doc, thank you so much.
I won't complain.